Hi. Sorry, I just woke up. I fell asleep. I think I had a dream, actually, that I was doing this review. And you were there. And you were there. And you were. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today, our movie in the middle is The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is the film adaptation of Frank Baum's story of a girl who gets whisked away to the land of Oz and meets a scarecrow, a tin man, a lion, and a wicked witch. This movie's so classic that I don't really think we think about it that much, but saying it out loud, it sounds very trippy. This was directed by Victor Fleming, who was the fourth of four directors, and also stars Judy Garland, Ray Bolger, Jack Haley, Margaret Hamilton, Bert, Lahr, and Frank Morgan. So this is, I think, the oldest movie that I have reviewed so far, and it is one of my absolute favorites. I watch it every year around Thanksgiving. Not really sure why. It just always comes on TBS around Thanksgiving, and it's just kind of a thing that I watch now. It has nothing to do with Thanksgiving besides the family aspect, but there you go. There is such a difference between movies that were made then versus now. I mean, obviously, it's been like 80 years, but just in terms of its look and what we try to do with movies now, it's so much different. And both of them have their advantages for sure. Today's is a lot more realistic. You can obviously do a lot more with it, but in terms of the look and what we try to do with it digitally, it's a lot more hyper realistic, and the color correction and everything, you can still do all those things, but it just feels like it's supposed to be more real. Movies made back then feel like they were supposed to be a piece of art to look at. Like movies today, I feel, are focused more on physical light that you can put on a scene. Movies made then, I feel like, were more about making it look like a painting. Like between the Technicolor and the fact that everything, specifically in The Wizard of Oz, looks like a filmed stage play. It looks like sets, and it's weird because that should be like a disadvantage. It feels like it should be like, oh, that takes me away from the movie. I don't know. It's something about the fact that it's this whole set. It brings you into this world as this one thing for every single scene. It's like a whole amount of effort put into what it looks like. There's something about that that's just really cool, and it allows them to focus more on the choreography, on the songs, on the acting. I don't know. It's so beautiful. Like I said, the Technicolor really makes it pop. Movies today, beautiful. I'm not saying that they're not. Trust me, you know that because I talk about that every single review I do. But movies back then, something was just different. The color was rich. It was just really beautiful. It just popped, and it just looks like a painting. And in some cases, it is a painting. Like when she's going down the yellow brick road, and then she's going, just into the distance. If she were to go another 10 feet, she'd probably run into a wall because it's a giant painting. Impressive, though. Another thing I really love about this movie is every single scene is iconic and a scene that I look forward to. It is one of the few movies that I don't wait through all these other scenes to get to the scenes that I'm really excited for. Every scene is a scene I'm excited for because it's something different but iconic. It's kind of like for me Back to the Future, which is another one of those that like almost every single scene in that movie is something that you're looking forward to. This one is the same thing because between the opening and the Somewhere Over the Rainbow and then her getting blown away to Oz and then the actual Munchkins and the Yellow Brick Road and everything, meeting all three of her friends, the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion, Emerald City, and then of course the scene where they go into the forest and they all have like an insane amount of weapons, which I think is really funny, especially considering the Scarecrow's gun is obviously plastic and will not shoot. And then of course the final scenes where she gets taken into the witch's castle and they have to go save her. I thought that was always one of the coolest endings that I've ever seen when I was younger. And it's weird because the movie is small in and of itself, but the ending just felt so big and so intense and honestly super creepy. This whole movie is simultaneously really endearing and beautiful and fun and fantastic, but it is really creepy. On the surface, you're like, yeah, this is nice. And then you're like, wait a minute, all this is kind of slightly terrifying. Specifically, the Wicked Witch. She is, without a doubt, incredibly creepy. Like, especially when you're younger. This is a kids movie, but it's actually not, because it could terrify some kids, to be honest. And it seems like that is the case both in the movie and in the production, because they had a ton of problems making this. I don't know how much you already know, because a lot of this has been like common knowledge for a while, but they had so many issues making this movie, and a lot of things that happened to people. Like the original Tin Man, Buddy Ebsen, he had to get out of the movie because he had an allergic reaction to the paint that they put on, the silver paint. I can't remember what was actually in it. He had that reaction and he had to quit the movie. And even more terrifying is Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch. In the scene in the beginning, when she comes up to Dorothy, she says, "I'll get you, my pretty," and then she disappears in the red smoke. You can see that she's lowered into something. And then you can see this whole fireball happen and everything. Well, the elevator that she was on got stuck, and the fireball came up, and because of the copper that was in her face paint, her face literally began to burn off. But I think the most unsettling conspiracy of things that happened on the Wizard of Oz set is the idea that a Munchkin committed suicide and hung himself, and it's in the movie. And if you're looking for it, it looks like that at first, but then if you continue watching, it is clearly a bird, like a puppet bird, because it flaps its wings. So no Munchkins were harmed in the making of this movie. So there was just a ton of problems. They even had, like I said, 4 different directors. It was a weird, almost it felt like one of those like cursed sets. So anyway, let's get a little lighter and talk about the songs. The songs is a huge part of this movie. It's obviously it's a musical. They're not like catchy necessarily, because a lot of them are a little quieter or a little softer. Obviously, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or the Tin Man's If I Only Had a Heart. But then a lot of them are kind of more upbeat and interesting, like the Scarecrow's If I Only Had a Brain, or the Emerald City song, or obviously Follow the Yellow Brick Road. And especially that one felt really like a Broadway production, because it's a lot of different parts throughout the song. It's like different variations going on in the same song. The entire soundtrack is just super fun, super beautiful. Even the Lions song, If I Were King of the Forest, which is an absolutely ridiculously sung song. And I love it. It's so goofy, man. Oh, and also, if I could own like a Toto, I would. Because he's a perfect dog. Him and Snoopy, perfect dogs. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, flying monkeys, badass. So overall, The Wizard of Oz is an astounding movie. Doesn't seem like it should be at first. It's one of those movies that, if you're a more recent human on this earth, you're like, okay, that's fine, that's small, it's kind of cheesy, whatever. But, it's taking into account what they could do back then, and how they filmed stuff. And honestly, I think that makes it even more beautiful, to be honest, just how they did it. It was just different. We're not ever going to get something like that anymore, I don't think. I think we are far past that kind of filmmaking, and it's really sad, because in and of itself, even not taking into account, that the limitations they had on filmmaking, that we have whatever we can do now, it is just, it holds up, I think, on its own, because it is such an interesting premise. It's such a weird story, but it keeps you engaged. It's heartwarming. It's perfect, I think, for the holidays for some reason. And it's a fantasy too, so it's fun. I think it's one of the movies that has like the most famous lines, like in quantity. Besides like Casablanca and Star Wars, I think this is one of those that has like the most amount of recognizable iconic lines. Like "There's no place like home," and "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too." I don't think that we're in Kansas anymore. It's just, I think there's so many of those, and so many iconic scenes as well. And then, of course, it just spurred on a bunch of other spin-offs and stage plays. I mean, obviously, we have Wicked now, and, there's so many other stories other than just the regular Wizard of Oz. There's a couple that he did, a lot of different stories and books in this land of Oz. We have Oz the Great and Powerful, which was a movie. I didn't hate it, but, it was so, there's always things that people are doing to reinvent the Wizard of Oz. Now, a lot of people say that they think it'd be cool to have a Wizard of Oz reboot, and then there are some people who are like, if you do that, I will cut your face off. So, which camp are you in that? I mean, generally, do you think that old classic movies that are like perfect. Do you think that they should be remade? Is there a point to it? There could be. Um, but what do you think? Do you think it would ruin it if they did a remake? And because I guess they sort of did that with Oz the Great and Powerful, but it was more of a prequel. So let me know what you think about that. I'm gonna give The Wizard of Oz a 4 out of 4, making it my next top shelf movie. Guys, let me know what you think of The Wizard of Oz. Let me know if you think that it should be remade or not. And I hope you have a really great Thanksgiving, a really safe Thanksgiving. I hope you're able to spend time with your families in some capacity. We are so close to being out of this, and then we can do everything normally next year. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.
I think I'll miss you most of all.